Oh, we are? Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. At the end.
Yeah.
I'll just give a little update. Let's see. So we don't have any agenda yet.
I wish it.
Let's open. All right, let's do one today. We didn't get to a lot of the things from last week. It's probably where we should start. But anything urgent that anyone wants to bring up?
I think the income module.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can put that first since Bryce is actively using it. I'm trying to do some work on refactoring the Weaver, but I guess it doesn't really need a lot of questions. I'm trying to, I mean, it's going to be a big pull request probably because it doesn't make sense to do too much of it piecemeal. Unfortunately, when I'm trying to move some code out of the YAML file, that's one of my main goals. And then I add it to the interview generator Pi module. That means rearranging some of the blocks because of the way that class definitions have to be read in Python. So like it has to be declared in a particular order that we weren't following in the module because it didn't matter. But when we add certain things that require that, especially typing, actually, is one of the big things that can't be as loose with that anymore. So it's going to be kind of messy to review. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions on how they want that, but
I feel like as long as it's like a PR that is you know that like the only thing you've changed is really like the main ordering of stuff, and like there's a separate PR for I've tweaked small things inside of the classes, so it's just if you see a big block and it looks like it's just a class that's moved, it's just a class that's moved. Would be the main thing that would help, and that's just, but
okay.
that's just the first thing that's on my head. Yeah, I don't know if that's really possible either though, since I know a lot of the things are moving into classes and stuff. So
that the way I'm doing it right now, it is like stuff is moving into classes, but I could undo it and try to have a separate PR, which is just rearranging the blocks after I know what it's. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's just
yeah, if it's just a big PR, it's just a big PR. You can't, and I don't think it's worth it to try and make you spend an extra like 2 or 3 hours trying to organize it when it would maybe save like 30 minutes of a review from each of us. Like overall, it's like extra 2 or 3 hours spent. Then
okay,
is saved.
Well,
so.
All right. Hopefully, it's more readable, and my goal is to have the output be the same. I'm not making any like substantive changes in this. I'm just trying to move code around, so that's at least one part of it that should help.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was like a lot of redundancies, which the docx field tester, PDF field tester, and assembly line YAML had repeated code in a lot of cases. So I tried to make one new file for all of that. This template validation YAML is the one that merges docx and PDF plus the stuff that was related to docx and PDF testing that was in the main assembly line YAML.
Okay.
And a big thing was moving, that maybe could have been separated, is moving the some stuff got moved from the YAML file to the interview generator module. Some stuff got moved from the interview generator module. No, that's not true. Never mind, that was a different PR. That's already been merged. Yeah, that's the basic idea. Okay, so I'll try to get it in relatively soon because it's not a very interesting PR, but hopefully it will make things a little cleaner and make it easier for us to contribute new stuff in the future. We'll see. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Sorry, I stole that. It's the first thing too. I just trying to keep listing it.
No, go for it. I don't think I have any other big thoughts there. Just
Oh,
factor in. I was going to say at some point. I know if you're not trying to go for substantive changes, we could, but I don't know if that's possible yet because you're still moving things into the Python file. Of like, if we're not going for substantial changes, we could still try to have the same, like, output of old time thing equals output of new thing. But I think to do that, we would just need to everything would need to be in Python, and we would need to have like output of save the output of some old interview and then, or some old go through the Weaver, and then have a unit test or integration test, but a Python test that is like running through the same way.
And I was trying to decide if I should try to do that in this pull request, because that is one of our big goals with this, right? Is to let someone generate the whole interview from Python without having to go through the interview. Like that none of the logic that generates the output, other than questions that are asked, is in the interview YAML.
Yeah.
What do people think about me trying to do that in this? Would it be helpful? It might make it easier to test, like you said, but it is only part of the way there, because you still have to do a manual version of it for the old code. Would that be worth trying to do? Would it be easier if we save that for a separate pull request? Like something I was just looking at, I hadn't looked at this code since last week. I was trying to figure out what to dive in. I was like, oh, something I haven't started at all is the moving the I'm feeling lucky code out of the interview YAML. Because that should probably be a function or method of the interview class, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that feel like that would make the PR too much larger? Or is there benefit to that for making it easier to test?
I think just the testing part would be useful. It makes there is a benefit there. If the I'm feeling lucky was kept as a separate PR, like separate refactor process out, that would probably help, because then it would also be a lot of the complexity there would just be, the function that makes an interview is already in Python, and it's just a matter of, okay, this is the stuff that is guessing the inputs to that new function. Is likely how I think that would end up going. I don't know if that, at least conceptually, I don't know if that's how it will be implemented for, like, I don't know, for performance reasons, but that feels like the right way to at least think about it.
Okay, so I won't do. I'll leave that code block where it is, I guess, for now. And then
yeah, if it's not too much of it.
It's one code block, so I can save that, and then I'll try to work on making a unit or Python testable, I guess integration test more really, but version of it. So I'll try to just tweak the API in ways that make it so you can do that.
Nice.
Yeah, and I guess the API can be whatever we want, but one thing that I was thinking is we might want to put more things on the interview class. Like right now, the upload object is a separate object, but maybe it would make more sense to have that be part of the class as an attribute, but that's probably not. Anyway, I won't go there. That's very detailed, given the long list of other things we have to talk about. I went ahead over the weekend and just did the upgrade to the production server. So something.
Oh, okay.
I was like, well, you know what? I'll just do the screen test, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we didn't get to it, but yeah, it's okay. Just for you, I guess this is really just for you, Bryce, but something you can do is if you're logged in, you can see the monitor option there, and it lets you see if anyone's using it. So I just chose a time when there weren't any interviews that were in use. It did have a half-hour downtime, but
yeah, I forgot the monitor would do that. Okay.
Only for ones that have that feature turned on, but it's on for all the assembly line interviews. So it would basically it was all of them.
Okay. I'm checking it to see if there was an influx of error messages.
Thank you.
Do you know when you did it?
Yesterday morning.
Yesterday morning. Okay.
I realized like what we have here.
Oh yeah, there's one new looking error. A few new looking errors. And I'll dive into them more. Okay, that was mostly what I wanted to just check, because I don't think there'll be, because I had a feeling there's always like some weird. They look like they're doc assemble issues, because one maybe might not be a Docker symbol issue. No, they're both Docker symbol issues. They look like they're like it looks like it's solely within like Docker symbol code.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll take a look at those. I don't even know like what's happening there, but yeah.
I did have to upgrade some of the interviews afterwards. So if you like start like in the afternoon yesterday, then everything should have been upgraded. But
okay, yeah, I think they started at like the new things looked like they were around like one on Sunday and then some this morning.
They were this morning, and they'd be live state things.
Yeah.
This is one thing I was like, we're doing all this, coming up with this idea of doing the testing to see if the interview starts. But this actually kind of does that. If you can view this page and there's no red links, that means the interviews can start. So doesn't tell. I don't know if there's things that would load here that might stop, that might not show you if there's an error on the actual screen. But I think it's probably the same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how to do that on a scheduled basis, but if y'all, I mean, we can just try and check for colored stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, it's hackiest check with the screenshot and look for.
No, I think it's fine. If we're going to test them, we might as well test them one by one, right? If we're going to automate it, that's no burden. But as far as a manual test, going to this page and just making sure everything is blue is still a good supplement, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't think the automated test would even like take that much longer. I guess the server has to load each one, but it shouldn't be too big of an issue. So,
but we can't do that on production anyway. Maybe that should have been a management discussion. I don't know.
No, because we really can't do it on production. So, like the issue there is that we had to sign like these agreements with the court as far as who has access to it. So, making a new API key that has the same access as us, even if in theory you can lock it down and it's tied to one repo, just doesn't feel like the right trade-off to make there in terms of adding a new surface of attack.
Okay.
Small as it is, like it's still, yeah. And what other thing is like there's a way to limit your API keys, but I don't think anyone's really used that code yet. So we're a little bit concerned about unintended stuff there.
Yeah.
Bugs, I guess, is what I should really say.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to jump onto the income module questions? Michelle, you had raised some of those on.
Right. So are we kind of on the same page of like, have I been able to make my concerns clear as far as that goes? Do we want to review those?
Maybe. Just because I think I'm confused on, not confused, but like, what's like the difference between sort of like you had certain things of like, oh, you shouldn't be using it like this, and like it's just not necessarily like it shouldn't be used by this, but it's just it has a big like qualifier on top of it, and you just have to be aware of the qualifier of that. Specifically, it's not using the all of the logic for.
I'm thinking of people like Caroline using this, right? I don't think having those qualifiers in the documentation is enough. Like, that's a kind of cover your, CYA solution. Like, well, we did say it in the documentation. Yes, no one remembers it, and it's, hard to spontaneously find. But we did say it in the documentation. Like that seems like a not useful way of reading this.
But is the issue that they can make use of a period? I forget what we renamed that to, but they don't if you use them directly. Because that feels like it's going to be
for a job. They cannot make use of those of the AL itemized. Like the item itself or the item dictionary. They should not use it.
You mean the developer shouldn't use it directly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the reason,
so I think the reason, I was going to say, I think the reason you was because I remember was that half of the logic for handling like hourly wages and like hourly items and times per year is in the itemized job itself, and then part like I think the attributes and maybe a sum. No, I think I added that. Yeah, I added total. But like the attributes themselves are part of the itemized value dict, but the dict itself can't use those attributes, which
in isolation.
In isolation, which is one of those things. If I think that that's what I had sort of mentioned, that like from like thinking through Quentin's feedback of like we need to handle different periods for each expense. Essentially, like on the supplement, even it's asking for everything monthly, but certain expenses like food and stuff make more sense weekly. And so like the job can't handle like different periods like that. And so that's just a new thing that we need to make anyway.
Why can't the job handle? I think the job can handle periods.
Does the job handle that?
It has to handle periods. Everything handles periods.
Well, no, the job handles a period of like how many times you're getting paid, but it's not handling like this thing you're getting paid once a week and this thing you're getting paid once a month. It's just everything's per pay period or it's hourly.
But different things can have different pay periods. Different items can have different pay periods.
Do they?
Yeah, for example, like your bonuses can be yearly and your tips can be hourly, and your tips can be daily or weekly, or your salary can be weekly and your bonuses can be yearly.
What is the self?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's that one. Okay. Okay, so actually it is well. I guess more of it's. I guess in general, it's not like the thing that I'm. If we're talking about things that make it easier for developers, I'm not tracking a job. I'm tracking expenses. Sorry, I'm talking too loud. I'm not tracking a job. I'm tracking expenses, and so I think.
So it's the name of it that's the issue in that case.
Less, I guess. It's more of the some of it's the name, and some of it's like it's. I guess it comes down to like is a job. Like, what is a job other than just a collection of expenses and deductions deductions and income? And if it's just like I guess I don't know.
Well, here's the only feedback that I have about this topic, because it seems like the reason why you're using the class in a way that's different from what Michelle expected is to handle the list of expenses as a dictionary, and then you need that exist attribute, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way that Jonathan wrote his first income class. And as soon as I tried to use it on a real form, it did not work, because there were instances where I wanted to have the same expense type twice or the same income type twice. And the form expected you to list your 3 pensions. So that's why I had to move it to a list, and I needed a different way to let people add the items. So checkbox is a nice, naive way to do it. It probably works for the form you're working on right now, but in reality, people don't really have here's my one food expense, or they might for certain classes of things, but there's things where they're gonna not want to give it a unique name, but they want to be able to list it multiple times with the same category associated with it. Certainly, there are forms in the wild where they require you to do that.
So I guess I'm starting to be confused, because this is starting to, I don't know what we probably all have different ideas of what the best actual user experience, UX, or essentially list of screens that the user would have to go through to enter all of these things. Mm-hmm. Because if we're talking and it's also one of those things, I feel like some of the things, I guess it just might help to know what are the series of screens that y'all would expect someone to have entered, to enter their income on, and what does it look like, and how many questions are there?
Well, I think, I told you what my thoughts were on it, but it's not necessarily that I have the right answer. It might be good to do. This would be one of the a really good form for us to do some user testing on, if we can. Maybe talk about trying to run some real usability tests with people. This would be a good one to see what people really like and don't like. there's like
Caroline-
also you have the drawback of the form itself sometimes, right? Where like it asks for it in a certain way, and it's hard to not do it by changing the questions you ask sometimes. To me, I think, Michelle, and I think I cut you off, but yeah, I'll just finish with my thought then, since you muted again. I think it's easiest for people to see a list of the things that go with a certain topic and then check off the things they have and then be asked about them individually. That's kind of what I came up with from trying it a couple different ways, but I could be wrong. It could not actually be the easiest way for most people. So yeah.
What did you mean about like entering it twice though? Because that's I don't understand that at all, of like why it would be entered twice in different places.
Well, let's say you're asking someone for all of their income, for example. Like that's an easy one because of and if you have checkboxes that say the different types of income that someone can have. One of them is pension, and they have 2 pension accounts or 2 jobs. Like then you're stuck, right? You have to name one job 1 and the other one job 2 in your dictionary if you're storing it as a dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when there's some category for the source of income, expense, asset, and people have more than one thing in that category, that's when the the checklist and dictionary model breaks down a little bit. And what I've done is I let people choose what kind of things do you have? And then I'll ask them about the first one, and they'll say, okay, do you have any other of that thing? Or I'll let them add them manually at the end, is another way I've tried it. The thing is, these aren't necessarily like very common. Some of them are going to be more common than others. Like most people have more than one bank account. They might have more than one checking account. So there's some things where it will happen more often that they're going to have multiples, and somewhere it's going to be kind of rare. But you just have to think about what happens in those scenarios without making people do the math themselves to total them up. That's what we want to avoid. Like the computer's really good at doing math. So you don't want to make someone say, okay, let me get out all of my bank accounts and add the total balance for it to answer this question the way it's asked.
I see. Okay. So this is one of those. I guess this is one of the thing I'm coming to, which is I think my original assumption had been like trying to like not as like go through every single thing of like, do you have this? Do you have any more of this? Like, etc. Do you have this? Do you have any more of this for like every single individual thing? Still trying like that's better in this case where there's like some math happening and there's some complexity there. That's slightly better than it would be trying to simplify it and being able to put it like do you have any of these expenses? Like how much are these expensive? It's like 2 questions as opposed to like a seemingly never-ending list of yes, like is there more? Yes, do you have another one? Like things like that. It's just like the thing that I'm trying to. If that makes
you
if that is
you
better,
can also avoid the there is another question by setting,
That's not what Quinn's saying. Quinn's saying is you still want to ask like you at least need to ask
well,
like
not for
some amount of.
everything. Not for everything, right?
And that's what I'm confused about. Some of the things that I'm thinking don't need to. I think Quinn had said you might need to, or at least that's what I'm understanding now, and I might just be wrong. But
let me try to get to one of the screens. Sorry, and
no,
this is a really annoying interview. A lot of questions. Okay. This is what I've done. So I just said, okay, what kind of income do you have? Check the box for what things you have. This is what it requires. You have to say the name of the pension plan.
Mm-hmm.
You say what frequency you get it on. And it says the thing here. You'll have a chance to add more later.
Okay.
And this is the trade-off that I made. And then you get an add another button. So you could change that. So after they enter the first thing, you're like, oh, people get this frequently, twice. Ask them another question, or you could put a checkbox underneath that says, I get more than one of these.
I think that's the default that maybe Michelle had done.
I get more than one
in
of these.
in some gathering, yeah, like, or it's the equivalent of like is there another is just a checkbox. That's like, is there another one
on the same screen?
Yeah,
the same screen. Yeah, I think that works because people can immediately see how to answer that question before they start trying to do the math. They can see that they're going to get a chance to put in more than one later. I don't really know a good way to do that other than that checkbox. I guess the question is, should it be at the top or the bottom?
I was thinking radio buttons.
What? Oh, radio
it might
buttons.
Be a clearer question if it were radio buttons, but yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how frequently that need comes up for people, right? And then you want to make sure they know how to use it, but also radio buttons are required questions you have to interact with every time, which might be annoying if you're putting a lot of the things you get once, one of. So, but that's basically the way that I've tried it. I don't know that it's the right way, but like the overview screen where you check the kinds of things you have, then you get prompted for putting in the information for each thing. And you have a chance to add more if there's duplicates or anything. That's what I was thinking of.
That's fair. So question for these, like the overview screen, because the main thing that I struggled with, and I tried to spend like at least I tried to use the special stuff for the expenses mostly. And I did that partially because the form has like, it splits out all the expenses for you. And so you need some way to like as a developer, just say, oh, print this particular like food expense in this category. And I'm not sure how exactly that would work from the developer side if you're letting people add multiple, like, oh, I go to, or maybe not for, I'm trying, like for telephone is listed. So like it's possible, like if you have a family, then you have more than one telephone plan, or at least like more than like, or if you're supporting or paying for like your like child's telephone plan or something like that, that'll be a separate thing, but it's still, or a separate bill, but it's like still the same telephone plan. So from this, you would have to ask like, oh, do you have an additional telephone plan?
Right.
But from the developer side, like you need to just be able to combine all of those and put them in telephone, or everything that the user adds that isn't like an additional category would just get spit into other, like telephone child or something, which doesn't seem how the court would want it, but I don't think that matters too much because the total amount is still correct.
Well, what I did is, it's tricky. It's easy when there's just one box. That's what the source attribute is for, keyword parameter.
Yes. Yeah.
It lets you combine all of the individual things. Let's try that. So let's say we have a rent as an expense, and we have paid $1,500 a month for one apartment, and we have another rent expense that's $1,000 a month, and okay. Sorry. There's more on this than I really should be trying to do speed through, but it puts it on the one line with the source keyword parameter, which maybe you already have seen that one, I guess it sounds like. But when there's two, the hard thing is something like the so here, right? So they're combined here. When there's space for two things like pensions here, then what if they add three? You're kind of stuck. I didn't really handle that well, but it basically will just list the first two, and then they still all get put into the total.
Yeah.
And then I guess I should really have made sure there's something in the remarks field, which I don't remember if I did that really very well or not. But that's the solution to that specific issue that I took. Now it's like way more complicated, but it was like the only way I could figure out how to do this form correctly. The form you're working on is a little simpler, but I would still think, after I thought it through, was like, this maybe is a better way to do it for user's experience in terms of not having to do the math.
Gotcha. Okay.
On A to J author interviews, apparently they give people a little pop-up calculator. That feels like it's not really helping them that much. So they have a button, they click a button, a calculator opens up on the screen for them. And they do the math. But it's like, why not just let them put all the numbers into the form? And that way, they're doing the right math. Sort of addition's easy, but what if they have to divide, like one of them is they pay rent for one thing once a month, one and the other one every 3 months? Like, how do they? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
People will make mistakes when you let them do math. But it's so if you want to see where, like, how it did it, this pattern, this interview does it that way, and it's the original reason I wrote the income class for. The dictionary style way, I think, is way simpler. And I think it works well for what it was designed for, which is to let people list the things that are on their pay stub, because there's a limited number of those items. They're right. They don't have to, they all had to fit on there. So maybe some things are from the same category, but it's a little bit less important to be flexible there in one pay stub.
Okay.
Because really what matters is like saying what everything is and then letting the court decide, like, oh, that shouldn't count as a deduction, or it should count as a deduction, I guess. But yeah, so okay, that's the basic idea, and there's the example that you could look at if you wanted.
That's fair. Okay.
It's not necessarily the right way. I mean, like, but yeah, I feel like it might.
I'm confused because you're also saying the dictionary style isn't the right, or like you don't think it's sort of like the easier way, but it's not necessarily the right, like the full featured right way. But if I'm remembering correctly, AL it still has, or AL income still has like the source attribute on the things in the dictionary, but it still is using a dictionary. Is that like a design thing that we should change about the class? I'm not sure, like, if I'm
for the AL itemized value, I don't know. I didn't design that class. That was but I did get feedback on it and review it, so I might have missed some things about it. Source might be redundant because the key should already be the name of the source, basically, right?
Right, but for example, source could be taxes.
Then you'd have like tax 1 and tax 2 would be the keys.
Yeah. Or something like that,
Yeah, it's a little redundant.
And one would, like, I think these would be separate categories, but like, you could have state taxes and federal taxes, and they're both taxes. I don't think you'd include that in calculations. I'm just giving a random example. That's what I understood as the requirement when I was.
That is a requirement, because that's sort of a thing. Yeah, that's a thing that the supplement has. It splits out federal tax, state tax, it splits out Social Security deductions and stuff like that. So.
But I mean, as far as like having a source as well as a key.
Yeah.
Because that could be handled just by having a key that's unique for each one, is what Michelle's saying, I think. Because you don't necessarily have to group all the taxes together at any point.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But if there is something that you do need to group them all together, then source is a way to do it. Like, for example, your thing, when it was rent, you could get the total of the rent, even though they have 2 rents.
Right.
Because they have the source rent.
And see, I feel like I'm fine with either of these, but I feel like there's at some point where it's just, oh, you either do rent as a key, or if you need to do 2, you switch to doing this complete other thing and you use the source instead. Like, that's the thing that's confusing me, is because it sounds like it could be either, and I as a not person who is not like actually working with a lot of the people who have these, who are filling these out, like, I don't know which to choose, and so I'm going to choose for the one that's safer and will, like, let me handle people entering more than one thing without somehow being weird or messing it up on the, like, interview side.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Like, maybe we should remove the source attribute for the AL itemized value, just so it's clear, like, that's a limit it has.
Or I'm thinking, like, I guess the other reason is just source becomes, is source, like, is the key the thing that we need, or is the sort. I don't know. I guess
I think people could use keys to do their own math on it, but if they know how to use the class, they can use source to get the class to do the math on it.
Because there's a finite, I mean, in general, like you probably, when you set up an AL itemized value, the way that it's designed to be used, at least, is like for a pay stub, right? Like, you know, the things you care about, or whatever it is.
I don't know.
The right thing, the dict, I guess.
The dict?
Yeah.
Okay.
That,
You're
like,
not
you know,
supposed
the
to use
class,
the
you know,
dictionary directly either, but
well, when you say that, like, there's a question that fills in the values of it, right? That's what I mean by,
okay.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When you have a question screen that you're trying to get someone to enter in their pay stub information, you probably know the labels you want them to allow them to enter.
Which are the keys.
Which are the keys.
But if you
so
have,
you know
for
how
example,
to do math on those labels too.
Yeah, but if you have, for example, rent, then, and you have 2 rents or 3 rents, then you can use the source and ask for the total of the rent.
But you wouldn't do that with the AL itemized value class.
For AL what?
You wouldn't use that itemized job
itemized
class for that task. You would use the income class.
Okay.
Which is list-based rather than dictionary-based. This is like a sub-item of one income, basically, right? It's like dropping down a level. Like at the top level, we have all of the incomes or expenses or assets. Those would go in their own object, which is a list. And you can have duplicates of certain types within that list. And then within one of those items, which is a job that you really want to be very specific about the deductions and expenses they have on that, deductions and income rather, they have on that job, then you drop down to like, okay, we're going to give you a list of all the different types of things that appear on a pay stub and let you put them in one by one. But
okay,
that's at the level of one item, one job, right? If you're getting paid by one person, they're breaking out the way they pay you into different categories. But it's not to let you enter things one level up. Is that clearly this is a confusing thing.
Well, I don't know of examples. It seemed to me at the time that we were saying that we wanted to stay open to that. And if Bryce is using AL itemized job as really AL itemized income or that kind of thing.
Wait, what?
Like as expenses or incomes.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair.
Like negative or positive incomes. Then maybe it is good to keep sources around. I don't know how he's using it.
Which I guess is the other thing that I'm over, like a question that I'm sort of still struggling to figure out overall of like, what do we want AL income to do? Because it feels like it's this weird mix of, it's very loose and very like, we're trying to let it be flexible to handle things, but like, in order for it to be flexible, you have to understand a whole lot of these details and things and sort of stuff that I hadn't really intended on trying to pick up when I was trying to implement it or like put it in the supplement. And I sort of I had the impression that it was more of a like a bit more opinionated and a bit more like easier drop in and plug and play. And so I feel like if we're still sort of straddling that line between being super flexible and wanting to do a lot of things and making it just the drop in, plug and play, this is how we think it's best to like ask for lots of different incomes and expenses and for jobs, for anything. And so I don't know just philosophically what the library should change to be for that.
Well, I think in some ways it's going to be our examples, right? So that are going to satisfy that. So, but this is making me lean towards removing the source attribute from the itemized. What is it? Itemized value dict? Is that the, well, it doesn't really matter, but we're removing that source attribute, which is confusing potentially. That feels like one really concrete change we can make to make the API more opinionated and help people understand how we intend to use it. But I think also we just need examples that people can use and reference. Because if we want it to be plug and play, writing a whole financial statement is huge. So I mean, it really should be like drop in. We should have the examples written, but it's not really in the class as much as it is in the usage.
I see. So like if plug and play is just not a thing that's possible, then that's fine. And I think I just don't know. I feel like I just mostly didn't really know what to expect trying to go in to start using it. And if we can lay it out as one or the other of those things, I think it would be good.
Well, like the very simplest way to do this, I didn't make that reviewable, would be to just like let people add their expenses one at a time, right? Instead of showing them the checklist. The checklist wasn't an intent to make it easier for them to do.
Yes. Yeah.
But if they just were prompted for this, when I get the add another, it's like, okay, what's the expense you have? Is it one of these items? It's other. Should actually ask you what the other is, but it doesn't. I don't remember why. You shouldn't be alphabetized either. Anyway, there's some other things I would want to change here. But, yeah, and then you put in the amount and the frequency. That's the simple drop-in way that I think you can get from just seeing the class. But if you want to have people do something like this, where I don't know how to do that more simply in the API, like I think that requires sample code. But I think it is the way we should encourage people to do it.
Okay.
But I mean, another thing we could do is we could change this so it says, okay, rent. How many rents do you have? I don't know. I'm not sure. It would reduce the follow-up question. People would understand right away that they could put in more than one of each thing. But just, well, when we're talking about removing a feature, like, is that an actual?
I don't think that removing the feature is what I'm trying to.
Okay.
What I'm trying to focus in on. It's just more of like the feature can stay. I feel like it's just would need to be either documented less or more. Probably not less, but like I guess maybe maybe it does just sort of come down to like example usages would help a lot, and how we intend to do things. Because I think I tried to base mine off of sort of what I think the existing supplement had a sort of phrase, or the existing supplement interview had sort of done things like I had done now, where with the checkbox and the other thing, and so it's mostly just a matter of trying to be like, oh, try it this other way too. I don't think I had seen that you had done the
Social Security interview.
The Social Security interview that way until you.
That was before I was at GBLS. Yeah, it was when I was at GBLS. I mean, that I worked on it. Well, the other thing is, this might be a mistake I made. So when I saw the original class, it said like this is a private class, and I was like, well, what does that mean? But maybe that would have helped you. That was the original way that Michelle had documented the class that you were using.
Well, I think it was less of that. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I did see that. I do read the warnings, and I do see that it says warning: don't use it like this. But also knowing that like it's not being used anywhere, and specifically that there wasn't something else that I could use for. Like that I clearly could use for like a list of expenses, because everything else is listed as like assets. Maybe it's just there was like this big gap of in expenses, and I think I'll make a PR that sort of takes it. I'll add like some extra class hierarchies, but at the end of the day, it'll be like the same job, and then AL itemized expenses, which is like will have the same code and share the same code that job is using to calculate all the periods, but it's just only going to be expenses or intended for expenses. It's not going to split them up into to add and to subtract. Since that, at least to me, that seems to make sense. And I think that was mostly the issue of like there was a big gap for like listing expenses and sort of how you overall handle things as opposed in the interview was just what I thought I had been missing.
Okay, so yeah, we have an asset class, but no expense class. I think expenses should not be handled as a dictionary, though. That's what I thought we were saying, but that's just my opinion, I guess. You might disagree, but so I don't think we should mirror the AL itemized value dict approach to collecting expenses.
Okay.
It only lets you put in one. It doesn't let you say variable periods for different duplicates. It makes you do the math if you do it the way with the checkbox.
That's fair. I think it had mostly been there's one function that I'm looking at in the job that's like item value per times of year that is doing a lot of the handling multiple periods. And I think that's the function that is like it has to be in the job thing. And so like Michelle, you were saying that it's like that's why you shouldn't use itemized dict because it can't that function can't go in itemized dict and it needs to go at a level higher. And so I just might try and make that more. I'm not sure exactly what like code or what code shape it will take, but I can make it more general and then have job use the same thing as the expense list or expense whatever we end up doing there. So.
And as a technical note, I think part of the reason that we didn't make it a dict was because it made it very hard to add custom items. I don't know if that
Customs
was
and
said. I've gotten
duplicates. Yeah, those two things.
custom items like defined by the user. Because you have to ask those in a very weird way.
So it's not a dictionary?
When you use a dictionary.
Well, it is a dictionary. Oh, so the job itself is not a dictionary. The job itself has two dictionaries to add and to subtract.
Yep.
Okay. But I was confused because I think I needed it. You like to add custom things. I needed to end up using the weird dictionary add, like to get a new name for it and to get a new like.
Oh,
and
maybe.
then once you had the new name, then you had to start a separate screen to ask the value.
Maybe it ended up that way anyway. Yeah, that might be the case. Weird. Yeah, we did end up needing the dictionary. I don't know. I don't remember anymore. It's all a blur.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. This is all just very complex, and I understand that, and it's hard for me to understand if I'm struggling with the inherent complexity or if I'm struggling with something else.
Well, I don't think it's the code that's makes it complex. I think it's just the way people have financial information is very complex and deceptively so. Because like that form's like a 2-page form. It's like, oh, I should be able to fill this out really quick. But in reality, people struggle with something like that a lot. So I don't mind working on this since I'm basically telling you, oh, you should follow my approach. I'm happy to just devote some time to putting it into the class. And maybe I can refactor the way I did it here a little bit, some more of the logics in the class, for letting people gather multiple expenses.
That's
helpful?
fair. I think it might be, but since I know I'm trying to get this finished fairly quickly, and so I'm doing a lot of what I'm doing in the supplement in tandem with these things in AL income. And so I might try and do it. I think I have your implementation and the SSI payment stuff, and I think that's good for me. And I think that would, and I can definitely take a look, and I'll definitely add you and make sure at both of y'all, and make sure that y'all can review things. Please keep. I was gonna say, Michelle, please. I know I might merge some of the stuff if I get an okay from Quinn, but please keep reviewing the PRs even if I've already merged them, because I do appreciate the feedback and whatnot.
Sure, I'll do what I can. Yeah.
And by the way, I gave you a lot of feedback, but a lot of it's post MVP feedback too, right? So letting people fill it in is the important part, even if there's a lot of places where people might be confused. It's just a confusing process. So maybe we can add words instead of refactoring the way stuff is done, unless it's easy to refactor and you agree with the change and improvement that the refactor would give you. So
that's fair, yeah.
Yeah. I figured I could just say everything that I thought as I was going through. And you could probably tell it was linear, so some of the things were probably contradicted after I saw it later. So, but don't feel like you have to change everything that I suggested.
Yeah, for sure. I'll at least try and do the things that I think are most important, and I guess we'll probably have to chat again about what ends up being MVP, because that's also a clear line. I don't think I've done that too many times with complex forms. I did it with the docketing statement once, but that was still a fairly straightforward. A lot of the things are on the field. It just needs a lot of things are on the form. They just needs more explanation. Whereas this, it's if it's actually to be actually useful for people, it does probably need to be a bit more than just what's on the form. So mostly I will probably need everyone else's help on trying to determine when it should be MVP. And also knowing that it can be MVP, like a rough MVP for just the appeals form, and then polish it a bit more once we want to start adding it to other forms. So
yeah, I think that's fine for if we just say like, okay, this is a beta form, but we think people can use it as well as they could use paper form at least. So we're going to release it anyway, but don't use it as a model yet until we can go back and clean stuff up. That might be like the way to bridge the gap there.
Okay.
Potentially. Okay, well, we just have a few minutes, so we probably can't dive into anything. Are any of these things we could already check off? I feel like the answer to this one is yes, right, Michelle? Now that we have the escape button that works in the toolbox.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. We need to make it initial. Keep forgetting to do that.
Thanks for all your work on that, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. Ended up being, well, complex to figure out, but simple to implement. And I think I know how they're doing it with the CSS.
It's merged. Okay, so does that mean we could merge this?
Which one was this?
Oh, right. This is the up-down button.
Oh, yeah. This is. I'm assuming that's actually putting it in forms, right? Is that what the thing is for? Because it's in, and I think now that you've updated the production server, it's the latest should be on all of our servers. It's just it's a thing we need to add manually to forms, and we have not done that. So
okay. Yeah, I would love to try it out in some forms. So is it documented anywhere?
Roughly, it's not like in our documentation page yet, but I could add that.
Okay, I mean, if you want to link me, I like editing the documentation. If you link me to where the code is documented, I don't mind trying it.
I was gonna say honestly, I think it's in the yeah, I can link the code, but honestly, I think probably the better full like explainer of how to use it is in these PRs.
In the PR itself, okay.
Yeah, which is probably too like a bit too technically oriented, but I can work on that too. But
I think the idea is to get it to a point where like anybody can just add it, or any of us can just add it to an interview without.
And we should add it into the Weaver, right? We should make it a default experience, probably. Sure. Is it safe enough for us to do that? Is there any dependencies that people might not have set up that would stop us?
It's GitHub dependencies, which I don't think we're handling in the Weaver, are we?
No. Okay, so maybe
that one's not GitHub. That one's
because it doesn't create like a.
That one's actually internal. It's actually
global or something.
Well, no, it's just a table. It's a raw SQL table that we're doing SQL table on the server. So actually, yeah, no, I don't think it would need any additional like setup or anything. I think our hesitancy there was mostly we don't know if there's a different way we should use it, and so we wanted to at least have it in one interview, see how it works, and see what we're getting there before we add it to the Weaver. But I don't know if that's.
Okay. Okay. Add it to.
I don't know, like what's our most popular. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know what our most like popular thing on assembly line is yet. I know we have a lot of bigger ones, but they're all still on.
Definitely is the affidavit of indigency by far.
Is the live one the new assembly line one, or is the old one? Is it still the MAVC?
It's still the MAVC one though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we should go ahead and make the live one the new one.
Yeah.
The problem was the email testing. We were like, that's not going to break stuff. But I think we already decided on another admin call that we just should turn off the email sending because it's misleading people.
I do remember.
We didn't do that yet, but that's basically what we said. Okay. Any combo box updates? Is there anything we should be thinking about still there?
No, I think I still have the big long checklist of testing on different browsers and stuff that I want to do.
Okay. Okay. So there's some stuff that we have a plan still where it's like, okay, we're going to do the upstream PR when it's ready. Yes. And yeah, I mean, we've been living with doc assembles have that problem for 5 years. So I'm okay with us just having it ready when it's ready. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's fair. It is something I do want to get want to get out, but I'm also trying to finish up the appeals form and the Illinois form before I focus on other things. So
yeah, that makes total sense. I wonder if are any of these PRs merged? Be nice to check them off if they're done. Yeah, they are. This one at least is. So I assume that means there's nothing more to discuss about it too.
Yeah, Michelle, I don't know if there was any other
This one's open.
parts to. Yeah, that one's still there. Or at least the documentation for guild stuff. If there's anything you wanted to talk about.
I mean, it's unclear. I think the documentation about the environment variables, but we can work on that some other time.
I want to bump this one. Bryce and I had like a little quick conversation about it the other day, but I think we gotta push through and solve the tech. It's like the biggest technical flaw with our product right now is that people can run into a timeout when they're generating the download screen, which feels like shouldn't be something people ever experience. So I don't want to discuss it today because we're out of time, but just wanted to make sure we think about it again. So people can think about it over the next week until we meet again.
I have one branch that is now like 18 months old or something where I started this, but it might be useful to like at least look at, but I think I could probably do better code or a better DocAssemble feature now than I could then, hopefully.
Yeah, we just got to think about like how we want the different parts to interact. Like, okay, so when do we know to trigger it? Are we okay with it making it be a manual task?
Mm-hmm.
Need to. Are all of the documents generated by them? And then like the big thing is like, how do we handle the refreshing of the page when someone edits an answer? Will it require a manual list of things that we want to refresh? Because that's the way that I've done in other interviews where we had like a pre-generated screen. We just like said, oh, if any of these 20 things change, regenerate the file. But that doesn't seem like we can do that in a scalable way for the.
So number 7, that link, I believe, is associated with the.
Yeah, it is. You're right. So it should be one of these, I guess. I think I was just trying to figure that out. That was well timed.
There's 2 of them now.
What's that?
There's 2. You copy and pasted it. So the text shows issues 84 twice. Has that link
Thank
twice.
You. Didn't catch that. So still work.
I think that deleted it.
Deleted a different.
That deleted more.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the middle. I see.
It deleted the manual task. It deleted
What's that?
Undelete. It deleted one of the items. So when to trigger generation, it deleted that as well.
Here, let me just copy this fresh.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. All right. Well, some good stuff to talk about later. I think that we hit our time limit. So,
thanks
everybody.
Thanks for the advice, guys.
Oh, you want to turn off this?